Welcome to the Mind for Success podcast. I'm your host, Kimberly Lebbing, and I love seeing business professionals, leaders, and entrepreneurs have massive success in their businesses. Are you ready to reach a higher level in your business? Are you looking to rise to the top and break through the barriers that are holding you back? If this is you, join us on the Mind for Success podcast. Hello, and welcome back to the Mind for Success podcast. I am super excited to introduce our guest today, Chelsey Newmyer. She is a productivity and time management coach, which I think everyone probably needs or has needed at some point. So I'm super excited to have her on the show. She's been coaching solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, and military spouses. So she's a military wife, and I'll let her tell you about that. But I'm excited because I know she's got a lot of value, and I know for myself with the clients that I work with, time management is one of the top things that people struggle with. So I'm excited to have you here. So welcome.
Thank you so much, Kim. I'm excited to be here. Wonderful.
Awesome. So I would love to hear why productivity. Tell us a little bit about you.
Absolutely. So I have always been kind of a time management nerd, right? Like I was that kid who loved the free planner in middle school and high school and loved making to-do lists. So it's always been something that was in my skill set, something I enjoyed doing. And I didn't really realize that it wasn't normal until after I graduated college, because I also went to engineering school. My undergraduate degree is in biomedical engineering. So I was kind of also surrounded by other type A nerds for a couple additional years. And when I got into working in development and fundraising, I realized it wasn't kind of a default skill that everybody had. And I loved helping my colleagues with it. I started tutoring. And so I was inspired to start my business actually during the pandemic because I had a little bit of extra time to put towards it, but also because I was reading such terrible productivity advice at the time. And it was things like, take a nap in the middle of your day, or which I love. I mean, great, right? But like I was working at a traditional job at the time. Like who's going to tell my boss that I need a couch in my office? Or block off a whole day for deep work. Like again, how am I going to fit that in my schedule when I'm not the one fully control my time? So I realized that solopreneurs, especially and entrepreneurs with really small teams, need help with adjusting to flexible scheduling and just getting all the things done because they're the only ones who can do it. So that was the inspiration behind my business. And as you mentioned, I'm a military spouse. I currently live on Guantanamo Bay Naval Base in Cuba. So my husband's in the Navy and I absolutely love it here. So I'm missing the fall terribly, but it's beautiful to be very close to the beach.
I'm in Missouri, so I can bring you all the fall vibes.
Oh, I love it.
that you want because we're in full fall mode right
Beautiful.
now. Yeah. So I know when we talked before, I was so fascinated with this because when I think about productivity, I think about the general stuff that you can Google, how to be more productive, and you might get time blocking or whatever. But you have a very unique approach. You mentioned how introverts and extroverts might structure their day differently. And that's something I would have never in a million years even thought of. Like, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I love time blocking. I really do. But I want to make sure that everything I'm talking about with my clients is personalized, because that's the thing is we can't just copy paste what someone else's schedule is going to look like and think that it's going to work well for us, because we all have different needs. Are you a morning person or a night person? Do you have kids? Do you have pets or responsibilities outside of that time control? But when it comes to introverts and extroverts, one of the things that I realized is that for me personally, again, we can talk through anyone's personal kind of preferences here, but I'm an extrovert. So I love having morning meetings because they jazz me up for the afternoon and I am re-energized to jump in and have dedicated time in the afternoon. I'm also not a morning person, so I'm not going to do my best kind of project work in the mornings anyway. So it makes a ton of sense for me to push as many of my meetings to the morning as possible, have fun, re-energize by having those conversations with people, and then leave my afternoons free to do that deep work. If you are a more focused morning person, or if you're a little bit more of an introvert, you may want to use that morning to do that deep project work, to, when you're most energized because it's quiet, because you're alone, because you have that space held for yourself. And then in the afternoons, when you're already kind of tired, already a little bit more distracted, that's when you can kind of throw in some of those meetings, because the deep work has been done already. So again, we want to make sure that we're tailoring as much as we possibly can based on your preferences and based on your experiences.
I can see so many light bulbs are going off because I think about, the times in my life, and I'm one of those people that's kind of in between introvert and extrovert. I can float either way depending on, what I have going on in my life at the time. And I could see so much value in that. Really, truly.
And it's fun to experiment with it, right? Like try one way for a few days, try another way for a few days, see how you feel at the end of the day, see how much work you're able to accomplish or how engaged you are in the meetings, and just experiment with what works for you. And again, I think you have a little bit more control, or most of us have more control over our schedules than we actually think we do. So it's okay for you to start telling your clients, oh, I'm moving my meetings to mornings now. What morning this week works best for you, right? Just because their best time is at 1:00 doesn't mean you have to accommodate that always.
Right. So much wisdom in this. So because of what I do with working with people in mindset, I'd love to hear what your take, or what are some of the things or obstacles that you come across with some of the people that you work with in regards to mindset.
Yeah. So first of all, I define productivity as working on the right thing at the right time to move you towards your goals. I don't mean productivity hacks that are just a bunch of things to make you do more in less time. That is the ultimate goal, right? Our ultimate goal is to do more things in less time. But it's so much more than just crossing off a bunch of busy work on our desks, right? And so we want to make sure that we're focusing on what's a priority. And we could definitely touch more on that too, because I think a lot of people struggle with what's a priority for them. But in business, it's often hard to kind of balance all of the things that we have to do or to handle when we start to feel overwhelmed or burnt out, right? It's really that pacing, that being consistent, that I think a lot of people from the mindset perspective struggle with, because they want to do it all. They want to do it all immediately, or anything like me, very impatient, right? We want it all. We want to get it done fast. We get really, really in the weeds instead of having a CEO mindset, which is like that top level strategy, big picture. What are the ultimate goals? And then we forget our why, and we forget what inspired us to start our business in the first place. And so without that kind of excitement of the passion and the motivation behind it, it's easy to get really sucked in or really bogged down with the weeds and with those small kind of busy work details that feel good because you get to cross them off your list, but ultimately aren't serving your clients and aren't growing your business as fast as you could be.
Right. Yeah, I totally can see that. And I also, like, if they're not, and I know this is something that I experienced a while back too, is that doing a bunch of things, even if they were my perceived right things, if they weren't the right things for me, it didn't matter. It didn't matter how much whether I did them, right to a T. They have to be right for you. And I could tell that that's something that you look out for with your people.
Yeah, absolutely. We never want to copy paste, right? You got to have your business your own way, have fun with it. And no one can do it like you, right? Like, I am not the only productivity coach that exists, but I deliver something that's different than those other ones out there. So reminding yourself of that as well.
Right. I can totally see that. So you talked about inbox. So what's the biggest, I was going to say, is inbox management? Is that one of the biggest things you deal with, or?
Yeah, weirdly, it's like
tell
one of
us
my
about
favorite.
that.
I feel like I'm a very weird person to like love talking about inbox management so much, but I love it because the reality is email takes up so much of our day, so much of our time. And there are, but it's so important, right? Like we can't ignore it. We have to interact with it. So I teach the 4 Ds of inbox management. It's delete. And the trick here is delete anything that's duplicated. So, for example, we set up a podcast interview. I registered as a Calendly link. I got a confirmation email. I deleted that email because everything is saved in the calendar invite on my calendar. So things like that, they're just shipping notifications, things that are duplicated. Delegate is if you have a team, if you have a family member, whomever gets that email next, move it along and then file it away. Delay is one of my favorite options in Gmail. This is called snooze. In Outlook, you can set a reminder, but this brings the email back into your inbox when you are ready to do something with it. So this is super great if you are remembering to pay a bill, or if a client says, I'd love to work with you. Can you reach out to me in 2 weeks? Awesome. Set that reminder for that email to pop back in your inbox 2 weeks later and follow up with them. And then the last one is do. And that's where you actually have to like respond or interact with the email, do something with it. But you'll notice that none of the options are open the email, mark it as unread 4 to 5 times and just let it sit there forever, right? We want to be super actionable with our emails, and that will help processing so much faster when you're a designated time to process your email. If you're keeping it open all day, it's just such a distraction. It's just going to keep pulling you away from whatever you're working on. So try to set blocks of time to process. And then when you're processing, you have 4 choices every time.
I love that. I just found that delay feature. I didn't even know that it was an option just recently. And that's been like, it's very cool.
It's one of my favorites.
Cool yes. Yeah. So what kind of, I guess, to give us a picture of when you work with somebody, like what could they expect? How long do you work with them? Is this something like, is it short term or is it a longer term sort of thing? Yeah. And what kind of results can you help them? What kind of things can you help them with?
This is a great question. Thank you so much for asking. I work with clients in a variety of ways. I have a group coaching program, which I love because I think we can learn from each other so much. Again, like this is all very customized. It's all what works best for you. And that takes some experimentation. So we often learn from each other, right? I've tried a lot of things and I can recommend a lot of things, but I love the group program because it's 8 or 12 weeks long. We cover a lot of different topics, and every week you can come together, you watch the module and we come together and talk about it specifically as a group so you can get your personal questions answered. When I work one-on-one with, like I said, mostly solopreneurs are who I work with because they're the ones who kind of do it all by themselves. Mm-hmm. And so we really start with those high-level goals of what does time freedom look like for you? What do you want your schedule to look like? Everybody has a different capacity and inclination to work. Like I love working. So it doesn't bother me that my days are a little bit longer. But if you are trying to build a business that is only 4 hours a day, that's your goal. Let's start there, right? Let's work backwards and see how we can get to that point. So that comes from scheduling, comes from organization. It comes from how to stop procrastinating, right? That's one way to get a lot done faster is if we stop procrastinating on things. It comes from faster inbox management. We talk about digital kind of tools that you can use. Again, not a bunch of hacks, but really strategic and thoughtful implementation of tools. We talk about project management. So taking something super high level and giving yourself a really actionable plan to accomplish that. And then kind of some of the day-to-day stuff, like how you create a to-do list that's not ridiculous, overwhelming with 400 things on it. How do you use your phone for good, not evil? And as far as distractions go, right? Like,
right.
There's so many different, if you have kids or, if you're still working at your full-time job, we can work about how we incorporate that into your schedule because we can't pretend that our business is the only thing we have to do. And so we also talk about, like those preferences that I mentioned right at the beginning. So it's really fun. We get really in the weeds. We talk a lot about goals and dreams and aspirations and just work backwards from there. And my one-on-one package is actually 6 months, and it's unlimited coaching because I recognize that, there's parameters around that, right? There's always an asterisk, but it's unlimited because there's going to be ebbs and flows. And so I don't want someone to feel like they have to show up every week and we have to talk about something really specific. If you are going through a really busy season, let's meet a couple times that week to talk through that versus, okay, I think I got things under control for now. I'm okay. Let's only check in once to plan out, the next month ahead, right? Like, I want it to be flexible. I want it to be customizable. And so that's why I decided to make that move.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that because it sounds like everything you do is very customized.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because it's, again, productivity is personal. So it
totally is.
It's not just a system I'm going to give you and say, do it my way.
Yeah.
My way may not work for you.
Yeah. I know this is something that people struggle with and I just know for years it was something that I struggled with, and I'd try this person's system and that person's system and I'd do really well for about a week or two. And then I'd be like, yeah, this isn't working. So having that person to be able to help you implement and really look at, because the great thing about coaches, and I bring a lot of other coaches on here, is that they can look at things that you don't see.
Mm-hmm.
You can look at things from a different view that you can't see because you're in it.
Yeah.
And you're the expert.
Yeah, I have a great example of this. Actually, I had a client who we were talking about like office clutter, essentially. And she was like, I'm a big paper person, so I always have a ton of paper clutter. And then I just retype all my notes. I was like, why do you retype your notes? She's like, oh, I thought I had to have everything digital. Who says you have to have everything digital? And she's like she paused. She's like, I don't know. I thought it was just everything had to be digital. And so it was just kind of like same thing, exactly like you said. It's just asking the question, because she was wasting a lot of time a week,
I bet,
rewriting her notes. And at the end of the day, she wasn't actually really even referencing them digitally, right? She would go back to her handwritten notes because that's what she was most comfortable with. That's what she enjoyed using. And so instead, we just came up with a better way for her to keep her notes organized. And so there's a lot of those kinds of questions that I'll ask, those kinds of really specific situations that, I always ask the questions like, what are you doing that is taking, if you're ever doing something and you think, man, this is taking a long time, let's talk about it, because there might be a faster way to do it.
Right. More than likely there is with today's technology. I know that person didn't want to be on technology, but
oh yeah, but we can utilize the tech. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many things. So I love that. So, what is, what's a place that people can get in contact with you? Like what's the best place to reach you?
Yeah. So I'm on Instagram. It's definitely one of my most fun platforms, and that's Chelsey N Coaching, and it's Chelsey with a Y. And then my website is chelseynewmyer.com. That's where you can get all the information about all the different services and packages that I offer.
Awesome. And I'll have those links in the description of this podcast. So I just want to thank you for being on today, because I know there's just so many people that struggle with this. And I don't care what level you are, whether you're new or whether you've been there a while, because even if you've been doing it a while, if you're expanding, you're bringing on new things. Yeah. And then you got to figure out how to get them done.
And most of us as entrepreneurs, we are excited to do it. We know what we want to do. We're just not quite sure exactly how to do it. And so I can help you link that bridge. That's what I love to do.
Yeah. I love it. Okay. Well, thank you so much for being on today. This was so valuable, I know. And to our listeners, go check out Chelsey on Instagram and go to her website and check it out. Thanks for being on.
Thanks, Kim.
Are you ready to break through the barriers that are holding you back and reach a higher level in your business in just 4 hours? Be sure to click the link today and join other high-achieving professionals that have worked with Kimberly Lebbing to accelerate their success.